What's up, guys? It's the Crossroads of Twilight. It's the part 1. I'm on about chapter 7. There's going to be a ton of spoilers. Let's jump into it. So the first thing that's really interesting about this book happens before we even have the introductory chapter. And it's this tiny little passage here before we even get like the chapters or the map. And let me read it to you. And it shall come to pass in the days when the dark hunt rides, when the right hand falters and the left hand strays, that mankind shall come to the crossroads of twilight, and all that is, all that was, and all that will be shall balance on the point of a sword, while the winds of the shadow grow. Kind of interesting. Most interesting bit is the bottom bit here. So it says it's from the prophecies of the dragon. Translation believed to be done by Jain Farstrider, also known as Jain Farstrider, shortly before his disappearance. So Jain was a real person in that story. I didn't realize that because his books pop up everywhere. So it just got me interested, and it made me think like we're definitely going to see more of Jain Farstrider later on. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jain has been like reborn into one of the characters, maybe even that we have now. You know, that would be interesting, and I would be fired up to have Jain in and around the storyline, seeing as he's like a mythical hero from these books. It would make sense that he's been spat out again so that we can read about him also. Anyway, on to the opening chapter, and the opening chapter is absolutely massive. It's 81 pages long, and I don't know about you guys, I'm not a huge fan of massive chapters. I do know that the final battle is like one humongous chapter, and I think that'll be a bit different. But the reason I don't like massive chapters is because although I want to enjoy the journey, like that's mostly what reading is, enjoying the journey, I do like the accomplishment of finishing a chapter or finishing a book. So when a chapter's like, you know, almost 100 pages long, it's like I don't know where to take a break. Like I don't know where to stop. I don't know where I can like put the book down and pick it back up, and I have like a clean break from one to the next. And although there's paragraphs and it jumps around perspectives, I would just prefer it if the chapters were smaller. So anyway, the first thing that we see in this massive, humongous, ginormous, never-ending chapter is Logain. And basically Logain has petitioned and wants to be the person who goes to now recruit new Ashermen. And him and his kind of followers in his camp, a lot of them have bonded the Aes Sedai. And what this is pushing me towards believing is that, well, number one, I don't think Logain and Mazrim Taim are going to last very long, you know, living in the same camp, because when Rand comes back, number one, I think he now knows Mazrim Taim was behind, you know, a lot of mischief. And then number two, just Logain and Mazrim Taim seem to be on a collision course. Now, Logain is a much nicer person than Mazrim Taim, it would appear. So I would definitely be rooting for Logain if they did battle. And we still have that prediction of the Aes Sedai are going to be battling at the Black Tower. And it's very plausible that what happens is Logain and his like kind of warder Aes Sedai versus Mazrim Taim's Asherman, and that would kind of fulfill the prophecy and be super satisfying and probably be a really cool scene as well. And then we jump to the White Tower, where you know, a huge battle is hopefully going to happen there at some point as well. And what I can say about that storyline is it is convoluted and complicated, and honestly I'm a little bit lost. I'm not lost on what's happening, but there's just so many names. There's like 100 characters just in that one White Tower, and a lot of their names are really similar, so it does get very confusing. So we have the Black Aja, we have rebels, we have presumably people who are both, presumably people who are neither, like those Aes Sedai that are just in the tower following a later. And then we have Alvarin, and then we have our Forsaken, who is there in that tower as well. We have Egwin's people turning up, and then we have the heads of the Argers who are like promoting people based on something that is not traditionally done. So a lot of new people have been promoted into powerful positions as well. Then we have sitters and people using the oath rod and chasing down others, and it's just like, wow, every time I read it, it's very confusing. So I am looking forward to resolutions in that storyline, but it's hard to make predictions. My only prediction is that I just think it is going to continue being convoluted. I feel like Egwin turning up does in no way mean that the battle is close. I feel like we're probably not going to see that battle in this book. Oh yeah, and on top of all that, Eleda is, you know, technically running the show, and she is like pretty much insane. An interesting side topic in that storyline is Egwin and Gawyn, and these two are in love. And there was a prediction a long time ago that either Egwin dies, I believe, or Gawyn kneels to her. I think that was the two predictions. And basically, I think to start with, Gawyn is maybe going to fight on the side of the White Tower, but then come across. And if he does begin fighting on the side of the White Tower just because he doesn't realize Egwene's there, or I don't know, a multitude of reasons, that will probably be the first time we'll have two of our main characters whose perspective we follow fighting on different sides of something, which would be kind of interesting. But I do predict Gawyn to yield and to kneel down and, you know, to help Egwene long term. Then we have two, what seems attempted murders. We have Davran Bashir, whose wife kind of gets like stabbed, and that one feels like someone's threatening him information-wise. And I had a sneaky suspicion that maybe he's a dark friend because of the way that went down. It seems like it was a kind of a blackmail situation. And then we also had Dobrain's murder attempt, which was much more thorough, and they very much nearly died, but looks like they're going to survive. So yeah, there is murder afoot. But the best news is our number one favorite Ogier is back in town. It's Loial. And when Loial was kind of lying about who he was before he was found out, like almost immediately, because he can't lie because he's like the purest character ever, he was talking about something called the Great Stump, and it sounds like there's a huge meeting going on with the ogres, and this very much is like gives me Treebeard vibes. So it gives me the vibes of Lord of the Rings when all the trees, the Ents, come together and they take forever to make a decision on anything. And I feel like that's going to be very similar to Loial and the ogres as a whole. However, one thing that will definitely bring them into the game will be the Seanchan's ogres, who look like they're going to have a more participating role now moving forward. So let's jump into that storyline. So in our other main dominating storyline from this section of the book, we jump back to Mat's perspective, and basically we miss the entirety of the escape from Ebru Dar and the Athan Mier causing havoc, killing a ton of people, and them kidnapping Tuon. Now we get like a bit of a recount of it, but I would have liked to have lived that experience. So they're all hiding out at Luca's like traveling circus essentially, and their goal and plan is to leave when Lucas is ready to leave, and it turns out they're just waiting on Tom Merrilin to come back before they're able to do that. But speaking of Tuon, the daughter of the Nine Moons, sorry, I think that there's some kind of prophecy on the Seanchan side, or somebody has given her a prophecy personally that she is to marry Mat, because she's so calm, and I mean there's just a lot of clues pointing towards her wanting to be captured by Mat. So number one, she's super calm. Number two, even when Mat was just wandering around the palace, he said Tuon would just pop up anywhere, and she'd be like watching him and keeping an eye on him. So, you know, maybe she already knew that this was going to happen as well, and she wanted to see her future husband. And then she starts asking Mat some really interesting questions, asking him like, do you remember Arthur Hawkwing, and things like that, which would again suggest that she knows more about Mat than anyone is letting on, well than she is letting on. So my two thoughts were, number one, there's some kind of prophecy on her end, and she knows she's already going to marry Mat, and she knows that Mat is going to help in the final battle, or something along those lines. The other answer could be she's using Mat to try and get close to Rand, because she knows that he and Rand are close, but I think it's probably more the first thing rather than the latter. Interesting information for you. It took me ages to clock this, but Arthur Hawkwing's last actual name was Paendrag, Paendrag. And I was like, that sounds really similar to Arthur Pendragon. And Arthur Pendragon is the original name of King Arthur. And obviously being from England, he was one of our guys, you know. So, yeah, interesting. I don't know if Arthur Hawkwing was inspired by King Arthur. Based on his last name, it would suggest so. So when we leave this storyline, though, we are left with the Death Watch guards going to search for Tuon. So it's Death Watch guards, it's Soldam and Daman, and it's also a load of Ogier gardeners. And I think these Ogier gardeners are what's going to be forcing the Ogiers we know, who are at the Great Stump, the big meeting currently, to come out and fight back, because they're going to see, well, you know, Ogiers are already involved in this war and not on the side that they would want to be in, presumably. Although there's like 7 sides right now. So as a side note, again, that storyline, like I'd love to know more about the Seanchan. Like it seems like a really interesting world, and it's clear to me now that the Seanchan, they essentially, it's like one nation almost, but they've conquered huge amounts of land across the ocean. So you can see, because there's people from different colored skins and different accents and tribes and locations, all essentially labeled as Seanchan, meaning that there was a ton of wars back there. And also the way that they get their successor, it seems really brutal, and it reminds me a lot of books written by Brent Weeks called the Night Angel trilogy. I don't know if any of you have read that before. I presume a couple of you have at least. And basically there's this family called the Ursals, and one of them is like the God King, king of everything, similar to the Empress. And the way they decide who is going to be the next one is essentially he just lets his sons fight it out. Like, they're allowed to battle each other and murder each other. And it seems like the Seanchans would probably be kind of similar, due to the fact that when it's a ton of, like the Game of Houses, for example, in Camelin, you have to be careful what you do, because you don't want to upset a whole other house and cause open war. Whereas if it's the blood and you're all one family, what that means is there seems like there probably wouldn't be a big open war, because it would divert all the power away from your family and you're the only ones holding it. So without having to worry about open war, you could probably be a lot more direct with killing each other, if that makes sense. So the last storyline is Perrin's. Perrin is in his camp, and a couple of interesting things have happened. Well, number one, he's chasing down his wife, Fael. I'm really looking forward to them catching up with the Shido. What I would love is a smash and grab where they go in, kill a bunch of people, take Fael, take Morghese and the other queen of Gildan as well, and escape with them. And then maybe have the Shido chase them. That would be really interesting. But what I think is actually going to happen is they're going to get there, and then the Shido and Perrin's forces are going to form some kind of alliance. Although unlikely as it seems, they're going to form some kind of alliance versus the Seanchan and the Prophet's forces, because the Seanchan and the Prophet's forces seem much less logical. And that's already like 4 or 5 different factions. If you throw in the Dark Hounds, then things start to get, you know, a little tasty in that storyline as well. One character that I do really like is Balwer, who was obviously the head of the spies for the White Cloaks for a while until betrayed, and now he's helping Perrin out. And I can't think of another character that so effectively gathers information and gets like a really clear picture of what's happening around them. And although at some point he will have to tell Perrin where he came from, and I don't know what Perrin's reaction will be to that, I do really like him as a character currently. I think there's no one who could be better for Perrin right now than someone who is more cunning and sneaky, because Perrin isn't that. He's very wholesome, and although he's smart and courageous, you need someone cunning and sneaky if you're going to be running things. But we have Aes Sedai from Perrin's camp who are visiting our prophet, and I've been scratching my head about that one, and I really can't figure that out. The only thing I would think is they are pretending to maybe be on the prophet's side, but the prophet doesn't even like Aes Sedai, and he's mental as well. So I don't know, that one really perplexed me. I'm looking forward to reading and finding out about that one. But it is confirmed that Masema was meeting with the Seanchan, so I could see an alliance between them two forming, which is why I predicted that maybe Perrin catches up with the Shido. Obviously they give Fael back, but he doesn't end up killing a bunch of them. Maybe they both turn to fight, you know, a combined Seanchan and Prophet force. And that's it so far. I will be back midweek and then on Sunday again. Hopefully I will have finished this book by then and we can move on to the next one. As always, please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this. If you're enjoying getting regular updates, you can hit the notifications button for when they post as well. Other than that, have an amazing day.